Thanks, Karen. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending today. If you just bear with me while I share my screen with the presentation. So hopefully you can all see the presentation now. So yeah, my name is David Nicolson. I'm one of the Community Programmes Officers at People's Postcode Lottery. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of the community level funding that's available this year, explaining the structure of the trusts, hopefully clarifying the avenue of which you will apply to, let you know about what our focuses for the year are, and the key things of how much you can apply for, and the round opening dates and the like as well. But first of all, thanks to Wiltshire Community Foundation for putting on today's session. Great to do another session with them. Great to sort of tap into their network of organisations. And yeah, great that the session's being recorded. I'll also share the presentation afterwards as well. So hopefully you won't have to take too many notes, but yeah, I think you're well covered in terms of accessing information afterwards. But first of all, we've got some fantastic news. So People's Postcode Lottery have now raised over £1 billion for good causes, and this continues to increase by about £14 million a month. All of the funding comes directly from players of People's Postcode Lottery. So from every ticket sold of People's Postcode Lottery, a minimum of 33% goes to charities and good causes. So to any players in the audience, I'd like to say a massive thank you. Your support makes so much possible across the length and breadth of the country. So I believe that most of today's attendees will be carrying out activities in the Wiltshire area or in the sort of surrounding counties. So the trust that you would make an application to would be Postcode Local Trust. As you can see by the map, there are 6 different sort of regions and nations that we've split the country into. So each trust covers a specific geographical area. So Postcode Local Trust covers the west and southwest of England. So this is the trust that I think most of you will be interested in. If you do happen to be carrying out work in different areas, or if you work nationally, then you can still apply. Just we would ask that you apply to the trust where you're either headquartered or where the majority of the activities take place. But in terms of Postcode Local Trust, we'll keep the focus on that today. So there are still 2 opportunities in the year to submit an application. There's another round opening on the 1st of June and the 4th of September. So the way that the rounds are working this year, which is a little bit different to the previous year, is that on those dates, the trust will open for funding at 10 AM for 24 hours. So you do have to start and submit your application within that 24-hour period. There's no cap on how many applications we'll accept, and it will be fully accessible for that 24-hour period. So you don't have to log on at 10 AM on the 1st of June, for example, to secure an application slot. You have that full 24-hour period to start and submit your application. We're aware that that's still quite a short period of time. So what we have done is we've made the questions that will be asked in that application available on the Trust website in advance. So those questions are available at the moment. And if there is any updates to the questions, we'll make that clear on the website as well. So it is worth checking back closer to that June date if you have started an application already. So hopefully having those questions available just now will allow you to formulate your responses to those questions, especially bearing in mind that there is quite a strict character count on the responses. And also we'd encourage you to liaise with team members or partners to make sure that you're answering the questions to the best of your abilities. So based on the first round of applications this year, which happened in March, we're forecasting a success rate of roughly 1 in 4 applications will be funded. And we expect to have a budget of just over £1 million for each of the two remaining rounds this year. So that's £1 million just for the Postcode Local Trust area. That total is obviously subject to how many tickets are in each draw. So if you are considering playing People's Postcode Lottery, go ahead and purchase that ticket and help contribute towards that total. As I mentioned, if you are looking to do activities elsewhere or work nationally, then there is going to be a trust that covers the area that you're looking to work in. The best way to find out which trust covers your area that you're looking to work in is to pop on to any of the trust websites and go to the Apply for a Grant section, and you'll find this Community Trust Finder tool. This allows you to pop in the postcode of, as I said, the area that you're looking to work in, and it will direct you to the relevant trust. It is important that you apply to the correct trust. As you may have seen this year, the trusts are open on different dates of the year. So it's important that you're aware in advance of what dates the trust that you're looking to apply to are accepting applications. As I mentioned previously, if you do work nationally, then we ask you to apply to the trust where you're headquartered or the majority of activities are taking place. So we've covered the trust structure, then we move on to the type of work that we're looking to support this year. So in 2023, we have 7 funding themes, so a slight revision from the 8 that we had previously, if you previously applied to us. But they are largely the same in terms of the areas that we're looking to fund work in. So the first of these is mental health, and this is proving to be our most popular theme this year as well as last year. But please note there's a slight change in wording from last year. So we do have a focus on mental health rather than general well-being this year. And by that, we mean sort of more formal, structured or professional mental health support rather than more general activities looking to improve mental well-being. Arts is the next one. So that enabling participation in the arts theme, the participation element is key. So whether that be dance classes, or anything in the sort of larger arts theme, we're looking for activities or organisations that are really about supporting active participation rather than just attending a performance or going to view some exhibits in a gallery, for example. Next up, we have supporting marginalised groups and tackling inequality. Not too much to say on this one, but what we are looking for is organisations that, again, are actively supporting marginalised groups or those that are facing inequality. And we want to really see that in the application you've got across how your activities makes a real difference to those people. Next up, we have enabling participation in physical activity. I'd like to emphasise here that this is not necessarily restricted to sports. We've funded activities such as gardening groups in this theme before. So it's anything that's getting people more active than they would normally be. Next up, we have one of our environmental or green themes. So improving green spaces and increasing access to the outdoors can also take many forms in terms of projects or organisations that we would support. So this can be gardening groups, it could be about improving paths for all ability access to parks and gardens, for example. Or also moving on to the next theme, improving biodiversity, is maybe more about that habitat restoration or encouraging strong biodiversity within the local area. Especially the climate emergency element of this theme can be seen as quite a heavy topic for small community organisations to take on, but we do look for you to keep things within the sort of scope of the level of funding that we offer. So we're not looking for you to change the world, but look at doing things on a more local sort of basis. Then last up, but by no means least, we have preventing or reducing the impact of poverty. And this is obviously a topic that is seeing lots of interest at the moment, unfortunately due to the cost of living situation. So again, here we're looking for applications to really convey how you're having a really active and positive impact on this area, rather than providing sort of general employability classes. For example, really looking at how you do that employability session and then support them into long-term and sustainable employment. So looking for real sort of positive outcomes in that section as well. In terms of selecting those themes, we do only let you select one theme, so there's no bonus points for covering more than one. And we advise you, if you do think that your organisation or your activities have a link to more than one, just to select the one that has the closest or strongest link. Now, in terms of what you can apply for this year, once again, we're offering two funding streams. So there's unrestricted funding or project funding. And I'll go into a little bit more detail of what we see those different funds being. So for project funding, dependent on the type of organisation that you're applying on behalf of, you can apply for between £500 and £25,000. Full details of the restrictions on that can be found in the funding guide, which is available for download from the Trust website just now. We see this funding as being specifically for programmes of work which are limited in scope or time and seeking to achieve specific outcomes. So this, in terms of what costs can be included, can have project staff, it could be equipment, it could be rental of a specific space to carry out those activities in, essentially anything that you need to run that project. We're also happy for you to include a proportion of the sort of core costs relating to delivery of that project. So that could be management oversight, proportion of that management time, venue hire, utility costs, a proportion of your public liability insurance, for example, looking at things essentially on a full cost recovery basis. Something that's new for this year is that all of the postcode trusts are real living wage funders, and we therefore encourage organisations where possible to pay in line or above the real living wage. We understand that it's not always possible for all organisations to do this, and there will be an opportunity to explain this in the application if that is the case. Again, more details can be found on our approach to this in the funding guide and funding strategy. There are some limitations on what can be included. Again, the funding guide is the best place to get the full breakdown of these. However, we are quite broad in what we accept, so we cover, just to recap, everything from staffing costs, equipment, capital works, and services that are contracted for. So that should hopefully give you quite a bit of scope in terms of the project that you're looking to deliver. Just to reiterate that activities that are included in the project should have a strong alignment with one of those funding themes. So of the 7, hopefully there's one that has a good fit to the project that you have in mind. In terms of the time frame for spending the funding, we allow you to go from anything from a one-day event up to 18 months worth of activities. And moving on to the second stream of funding, so this is the unrestricted funding theme. So again, dependent on the type of organisation that you're applying on behalf of, we offer grants from between £500 and £25,000. There are a few sort of caveats on that amount. So we only allow you to apply for up to 1/3 of your previous year's income. And you must have been in operation for at least 12 months and have a full set of accounts available in order to be able to apply for this stream. If you don't meet that condition, then you can still apply for project funding. So bear that in mind if you are a relatively new organisation or one that's had fairly minimal funding in the past year. But as the name suggests, this type of funding can be used for anything within an organisation's charitable objectives, apart from the few things that are listed on the what we don't fund list on the funding guide. just to give you a summary of what those could be, so that would be international travel or activities overseas, any party political or religious activities, for example. So fairly standard things that you would expect to find in such a fund, but again, please do check the funding guide for full details there. In terms of the link to the funding themes, we would look for your organisation's objectives or aims to have a clear link to that theme. So essentially, we're looking to support an organisation that is set up to have an impact in one of those thematic areas. And similar to the project section, as we are a real living wage funder, you will have an opportunity to declare whether you are an accredited real living wage employer. And if not, you can explain perhaps the barriers that you are seeing to matching that or becoming accredited. So unfortunately, there is a few organisations that wouldn't be able to apply for this strand. So as we covered already, brand new organisations would be limited to applying to that project stream. There's also the likes of hospices, religious institutions, any organisations that carry out medical work or work internationally would again be restricted to applying to the project funding stream only. And once again, you have up to a period of 18 months to utilise this funding. We don't ask you to give us a summary of what you propose to spend funding on in the application. We leave that till the end of that funding period, where we ask you to summarise what you ultimately used the funding for. So the idea behind this is that it's nice and flexible. You can either be very responsive and agile with your use of funding, or just give you that flexibility to respond to your beneficiaries' needs throughout the year. And as I say, it's really looking to make a sort of an investment in your organisation that has a strong link in terms of its objects to one of those funding themes. Now moving on to the application process. So once again, this year we've tried to keep things as clear and simple as possible. Again, it's a one-stage application form, and this is done via the Trust website. So the way that the form is working this year is that you complete the general details about the organisation, and then you choose whether you want to apply for project funding or unrestricted funding. So what that means is that you can only make one application per funding round, and that's a maximum of 2 applications per organisation per year across the 3 funding opportunities that there's been this year. There is a couple of documents that we ask you to supply at this point of the application process as well. So these would be the governing documents of the organisation, as well as the most recent set of accounts. And please do ensure that these have both been signed, as well in terms of the accounts, that they've been signed by any independent examiners or auditors as well. We only require quotes if you're applying for project funding, and even then it's only if you're looking to purchase individual pieces of equipment that are valued at over £1,000, and we do only require 1 quote as well. So hopefully, again, that should aid in keeping the application process as simple and straightforward as possible. We also require details of 2 referees. So these would be organisations or people that you've worked with in a professional capacity. So this could be a previous funder, it could be a local councillor or local MP if you have a sort of strong relationship with them. Or it could be just another organisation that you've partnered with on a previous project or session of activities. We do contact these referees to verify some basic details about the organisation and the main contact that's made an application to the Trust. And please note that we can't act as your referee, and please do ensure that these referees will be available to be contacted via email roughly 2 or 3 weeks after the application has been made. There's a few other things to note at this stage as well. So you will be asked to confirm that you have a bank account in the name of your organisation that's already set up. This should be the same name as appears on your governing document. However, if there have been any formal name changes, you can submit proof of that at the application stage as well. And then again, just to reiterate that your bank account must be already set up, and we don't have the capacity to sort of delay payment until that has happened. So if you are a new organisation, please make sure that you're all set and ready to go before making an application. So as I said, there's a few things that we don't fund. So first up is organisations that have previously received funding from any of the postcode trusts within the last 12 months. And as it mentions, we count the 12 months from the date at which you received the payment rather than from when you made the application. We're not set up to be a repeat funder year on year, and while we're happy to fund organisations multiple times, we're not set up to provide sort of continuity funding year on year. We do accept applications from community interest companies, but only Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 CIC, so please do double check what setup your organisation is. Hospices are something that we don't fund for unrestricted funding, and please do double check that any project applications don't include any elements of medical treatment. If you're an organisation that has solely religious objects, then unfortunately we wouldn't accept an application from you at all. We do recognise that many religious organisations have a history of doing great community work, but please to ensure that in terms of your governing document, that you do have objects that reflect that as well. And as mentioned previously, if you are applying for unrestricted funding, we'll only allow you to apply for up to 1/3 of your previous year's income, and we will sort of double check that based on the accounts that are submitted, as well as any accounts that are available via the regulators, such as Companies House and the Charity Commission or Oscar. As I mentioned before, there's a section within the funding guide that details these in a little bit more detail. And just to give you an idea of the timeline for the funding rounds this year. So again, we've tried to make things as quick as possible. So you should hear back within a 4-week period from making the application as to whether you've been successful or not. If you have been successful, it's then usually another 4 weeks until the funding hits your account. So that gives us time to do the sort of administration around the funding agreement and make sure that all the bank details, etc., have been verified before making those payments. However, we are also aware that unfortunately not everybody is always successful. So after that 4-week period, when you do get the outcome of your application, we do provide individual feedback as a matter of course. We try to make this as sort of tailored to each applicant as possible. And this year we've been giving feedback on each of the sort of main narrative questions to try and support a stronger application if you choose to apply a second time later in the year. As I noticed there, if you are unsuccessful in your first application, we'll allow you to apply further once later in the year. So if you haven't applied already this year, there are 2 opportunities in June and September, so you'll be able to make an application on each of those occasions. So that hopefully gives you an overview of the main funding options that we have, but there are 2 further funding opportunities that I'd like to give you a bit of an overview of. So the next 2 programmes I'm going to discuss are both funded, again, by the players of People's Postcode Lottery through the Community Programmes Trusts, but the application process and awards, etc., are all managed by our partner organisations. So the first of these is the School Nature Grants programme run by Learning Through Landscapes. This is aimed at schools, preschools, nurseries, and pupil referral units, so everything from preschool up to secondary school. And this offers £500 worth of equipment and a further batch of training, really surrounding the sort of nature-based programmes that get children engaged with outdoors and engaged with the natural world. So you get £500 worth of equipment, as well as sessions either in person or online with training staff from Learning Through Landscapes. And this is aimed at upskilling teachers and volunteers to deliver informative and engaging sessions, bringing the classroom outdoors and into nature. So you can make an application via the Learning to Landscapes website, and they have 4 application opportunities across the year. So check out the Learning to Landscapes website for full details on how to apply. Next up, we have the Magic Little Grants programme, which is delivered by Local Giving. Again, this offers £500 worth of grants for smaller projects that are linked to the same 7 themes that we discussed earlier. This is a very short and quick application process, and they're having monthly funding rounds up until and including October this year. This is aimed at smaller organisations with a turnover of up to £250,000, and really looking at those shorter term projects that are still looking to have a good level of impact within the community. So once again, if you're looking to apply to that, check out the Local Giving website for details of when and how to apply. And the good news is that you can apply to and be successful to the Magic Little Grants programme, and then still apply to the main batch of funding directly from ourselves. But please do note that if you are successful with the main batch of funding, you can't then apply to the Magic Little Grants programme. So essentially, you can go from small award to a bigger award with ourselves, but not vice versa. If you have any questions about either of those partnership programs, then please do get in touch with either Local Giving or Learning to Landscapes. And if you do have any questions about the main batch of funding, then obviously I can take some of them now, but we're happy for you to get in touch directly afterwards, and I'll share the contact details when we send round the slides at a later date. So I'd like to open things up to questions now.